is, some of you may remember this as a Brewmaster Reserve beer, but not in this form, called Cuvée Noire. Cuvée Noire was not from last winter, this past winter, but the winter before. And the best way to describe it would be Belgian stout. I mean, what we did basically was, it was very similar, you know, in the overall idea to Local 2, so strong Abbey. But I wanted to experiment with what happens when you pull out the candy sugar and basically replace the candy sugar with roasted malts. Because as you know, Belgian beers, generally they may have some roasted malts, but by and large, when you're getting that color, you're getting it from caramelized sugars. And in Local 2, that expresses itself as a very kind of raisiny character. I wanted to explore what happened when you kind of didn't go all the way to, say, imperial stout intensity of roast, but you definitely filled in that chocolate coffee, sort of fraction. I like that beer a lot. It actually aged really well in kegs. I mean, only a few months ago, I had kegs that were well over a year old, tasting nice. But aside from that, we put in 6 bourbon barrels from my friends at the Heaven Hill Distillery, who make my house bourbon, which is Elijah Craig 12-year-old. And since I know that bourbon really, really, really well, I want, but most of the barrels that we use here are Woodford Reserve barrels, which we use to make Black Ops. I wanted to use a different bourbon barrel and kind of, have the right beer to interact the way that I wanted to with that kind of bourbon. And that bourbon is less vanilla, more floral, etc. Every distiller's wood is really different. The way not only their source of wood, but how it's being cured out in the fields, how it's being treated, what their level of tar is, and that makes it a big difference for what your whiskeys taste like. So we had about 5 months. We put this aside in Elijah Craig 12-year-old barrels, re-fermented in a bottle then with champagne yeast. So this is about a year and a half old, and is really one of my favorite. This is what we call, as I said earlier, ghost bottles. I mean, kind of our personal stash. We send it out for for special events and particularly for dinners. This pairs up really nicely with beef dishes, and I always try to figure out what it is, but you'll see a lot of treatments of beef, especially beef cheeks and things like that, by top chefs that involve a lot of vanilla. And I don't know what it is about the flavors of like really beefy flavors with vanilla, but of course the vanillin, which you're getting out of the wood here, is pretty far forward. And I just like the way these two things are really nicely married. When we do barrel aging, we don't like it to be, here's a beer and it tastes like it has a shot of bourbon in it. We want something that's more married. And I think that here, the flavors are well melded.